Hi, I'm Frederick Van Johnson, and in this quick video, I'm going to be taking you through my workflow for doing black and white conversions using Topaz BW Effects. What we're going to do is we're going to step through Lightroom. We're going to start in Lightroom, do some edits in Lightroom, move from Lightroom to Photoshop, and from Photoshop, we will launch the Topaz BW Effects plugin, do our conversion, and then round trip back into Lightroom. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are. We're in Lightroom, and this is a recent shoot that I did, and we're going to work on this image. And you can see straight out of the camera, this image is a little bit dark. We're losing our subject into the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my develop module here. We'll close that off. We'll go into my develop module, and I'm going to bring the exposure up just a little bit. Right, so we don't want to lose any of the detail in the whites. Just want to basically turn the lights on a little bit for this guy. All right, so that's about as far as I want to push it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring back this panel and I'm going to go 1:1 so I can see exactly what I'm working on here. And what I'm mainly concerned with is the hair and losing his hair into the background here without blowing out any of the detail in the face here. So I could do a localized correction around here and sort of dodge this area out. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to let Lightroom do the work for me. So I'm going to bring the shadow slider up just a little bit, just to bring out some of the detail in the darker areas there. And I'm not worried about the background getting lighter a little bit because the background was sort of a grayish cloth anyway. And I kind of want that texture back there. I don't want it to go completely black. So that's actually kind of where I want to be. And then on my blacks, I'm just going to bring this back a little bit, or actually bring it up a little bit. Sorry about that. So here we go. So there we are. So I can click the mouse button to go back to full view, and I'm going to click my before and after icon down here just to see what it looks like before and after. So here we are, the original image. We can zoom in on them both here. We can see the original image. We're losing a lot of the hair detail into the background, and over on the after image, we have the hair back, and he's looking pretty good. Opened up some of the shadows on the side of the face and all that. So let's get back to our full screen image here. We'll click once to bring that in. Now, what I'm going to do is just do some rudimentary retouching to his face. He's a great face here, very expressive, but this is a portrait, and presumably this will be in his family for a while. So I'm sure he wants some of these things that aren't necessarily permanent on his face to be removed. So you can enjoy this picture for years to come. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my little clone stamp here, and I'm just going to target some of the blemishes that I know are probably not part of his face permanently. So I'll just target this guy. We'll take that off. I'm using the scroll wheel on the mouse to change the side of my brush as I just sort of walk around the image, finding pieces of the image or things that I want to remove to make him look his best. Right, so we'll remove that. There's a little thing right here on the nose that I'll take off. There's a little thing on the tip of his nose that we'll get rid of. I'm going to use a space bar so that I can move around the image. And we'll get rid of a couple of these things on his neck. Just like that. And again, the idea behind this kind of retouching is, you want to be like a burglar, right? You don't want to leave any traces of your being here. So if people know that you've retouched the image, then you haven't done as good of a job as you could have. Okay, so then I just spent a couple minutes just going around the image like that, getting rid of things like that. Then we'll turn off this tool, zoom back out. Look at that, looks better already, right? So then what I do is, what I'm going to do is, for guys, generally I add a little bit of clarity just to make them pop a little bit, make them look a little bit more gritty. For women, it's the opposite, of course. Women want smoother skin, generally speaking, want smoother skin, and sort of a softer appearance. Guys are the opposite. So For guys, we're going to drag the clarity slider to the right, just like this. Get them a little bit more gritty looking, a little bit more rugged lumberjacky, right? And then normally what I do is I'll just add just a splash of saturation in there just to make them a little bit warmer, not too much. You don't want them to look jaundiced, just a little bit warmer. And there we go. So we could go down and reduce noise. There's a little bit of noise in here. I'm going to leave all this in here because we're doing a black and white conversion, and I kind of want it to look a little rough anyway. So we'll leave that in there. And we're going to do our vignetting inside of Topaz Black and White Effects. So at this point, we're about done in Lightroom. I'm happy with this image. Oh, actually, there's one more thing that I want to do. I want to crop it, right? So this is straight out of the camera. He's a little bit off to the left. Not too bad. It would actually work like this. But I want him a little bit tighter because this is not an ad for, a clothing ad. And right now, we don't know what the subject is. Is the subject him or is the subject what he's wearing? So I want to focus it more on his face. So what I'm going to do is hit the R key. That's a hotkey to go into the crop tool in Lightroom. So I hit the R key, and then I'll drag my crop in. I'm holding down the Shift key to constrain my proportions. So we'll drag this down just like that. Normally I put the eye line right at the top of the rule of thirds there and center him kind of like that. A little bit off to the side, add a little visual interest. But we'll put him just about right there and then hit the Enter key. And there you go. There's our portrait. We clearly know that this isn't about his clothing. It is about his face. His teeth are great, so we don't need to do any whitening. So I'm good to go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into Photoshop. So we'll go Edit in Photoshop CS6. And what it will do is take this image, pitch it over to Photoshop. Photoshop catches it. Boom, here we are. We're in Photoshop, and we can do whatever we need to do here with this image. Okay, I've already done my retouching. All that stuff is done. So what I want to do here is just go do my black and white conversion really quickly. So I'll just go to Filter, Topaz Labs, Black and White Effects. All right. We're in black and white effects, and immediately it applied the last selected settings that I did in this plugin, which happen to look like this. And this is actually pretty good. We could stop here, but I'm not going to do that. Over on the left of the screen are our presets, kind of like in Lightroom, right? So we've got our preset categories: traditional, toned, stylized, etc. And underneath each one of these categories are your presets. And as you roll over the presets, the software applies them to the thumbnail at the top, kind of showing you a preview of what it's going to look like. And basically the same idea as what Lightroom does. We're going to start with Classic. Okay, so Classic applies, and that's what now at this point we're basically done with the presets panel. So I can go over here and just click this arrow, get that out of my way. So now I have more area to work with, especially when I go one-to-one. So over on the right-hand side of the screen, before we do that, one quick cool thing about Topaz Black and White Effects is when you click the mouse button, it'll give you an instant preview of what the original image looks like, right? So you can just click at any time, see what the original image looks like. And what it's doing is it's toggling these views at the top left. So I can go to original, I can go to preview. But if I just want to see it quickly, I can just click the mouse button on the image and it shows them to me. The other way to do that is the space bar. So when I'm zoomed in one-to-one, like I'm going to do now, so when I'm zoomed in one-to-one, I want to pan around the image. There's a couple of ways to do that. I can use the pan tool right here and sort of drag around the image to see what I'm doing. All right, so I can drag up and let go here. I can drag down. I can see exactly what I'm doing on the image. But if I want to kill two birds with one stone, I can hit the space bar. It'll show me the original image and allow me to pan. So here we go, space bar, and I'm panning around. So that's generally how I do it. I'll hit the space bar and pan around, mostly because I'm used to doing that in both Lightroom and Photoshop. And that's the way that works. So we're going to do some quick tweaks to what the preset gave us here. So we'll go into conversion here, first of all. And you'll see down this list here, it's showing you the different controls that you have for conversion: basic, adaptive, color sensitivity, color filter, curve tool. And you'll notice on the left here, there's check boxes. So this is saying basically that you've made some settings. I'm applying settings in basic exposure and I'm applying settings in adaptive exposure, but nothing in these other guys. So we can turn entire categories of settings off by just clicking that checkbox, and turn it back on. We can hit this right facing arrow here to get to the controls within there. And in this one, for example, is a little flat, so I'm going to boost my contrast just a little bit, like this. Boom. Remember, I'm going for that gritty look. Maybe not that gritty, but I'm going for a little bit of a gritty, sort of contrasty look here. And I'm going to bring my brightness up just a little feather here. And now I lost some of my blacks, so I'm going to boost my blacks a little bit now to bring those back in. All right. And I think this might be a little bit too bright, so let's back off of the brightness a little bit. So you can see how we're just playing around in here. We're just getting the image where we want it, right? So now let me zoom back out. I'm going to hit the fit button here to zoom back out to fit the screen. Yeah, I'm kind of liking the way that looks. It's looking very portraity at this point. So one thing that I want to do, I'm going to go back into one-to-one view in this guy. Holding down the space bar. He's a little bit dark on the side of his face here. So I'm going to close up conversion here. And I'm going to go down to local adjustments. Dodge, right? So, and I'm going to grab my brush, grab a brush about this size. So just click and slide this, and you can see it gives you a preview of what size your brush looks like. You can change the opacity, the hardness, or the edge awareness, which is smart, sort of a smart selection. So now I'm just going to sort of paint in like that. And you can see kind of it was heavy-handed, right? So I'm going to click the undo button, and I'm going to make the hardness a little less hard, and I'm going to bring the opacity down some. Okay, there, much better. So now I can make successive sort of brush strokes to sort of dodge like I would be dodging in the Lightroom, right on the side of his face here, right? Bring that out a little bit. And you can see over on the right-hand side of the screen, this is the mask that it's making as I add brush strokes to it. You can see in grayscale that it's showing how I'm lightening up the image on that side. Okay, so then that's it, I think. Okay, I'm going to close up my local adjustments. Now, my finishing touches, number 4 here, these are the, like it says, finishing touches to allow you to add some sort of oomph to your image. What I'm going to do for this quick tutorial is I'm going to add a vignette. So I'm going to turn on vignetting, and I'm going to scroll this down, and then I'm going to go back to fit so I can see what I'm doing. Now, obviously, this vignette is way too strong for what I want. So I'm going to take the strength, and I'm going to pull it off a little bit like that. So there we go. So we'll put it about right there. I still want to see some of that texture on the background, but not too much. It's kind of a little bit heavy-handed here, but not too bad. Just want kind of a hint of a vignette on this guy. There you go. Okay, so there we go. Let's go into one-to-one. Let's see how that looks. Hold down the space bar. Let's go take a look up top here. We can see we have some detail going around the edge and a nice transition out to darker around the edge here. Okay, so there we go. So I'm going to go fit so we can see our final image. I can turn vignetting on and off using this button right here. We can see the before and after. I kind of like it with the vignetting, so I'm going to leave it. Okay, now I'm done with this image. Now all I have to do is click the OK button. And there we go. We're back into Photoshop with our processed image. It is ready to go. Okay, so I could go ahead and do some more edits in Photoshop, right? Because all pixels are available to me at this point. I can do whatever I want to do. But I think I'm done with this right now. I'm going to take it back into Lightroom. And to round trip it back into Lightroom, all you need to do is hit Command S, save it. And now magically it's back into Lightroom. We'll switch over to Lightroom. And here we are inside of Lightroom with our processed converted image sitting right in front of us. Now I'll hit the G key to go back to the library view, and you can see here's the processed image, here's the original image, and they're stacked. So if I click these double lines here, it will hide the original image underneath the processed image so that, in case I really don't need to have that one available to me. And I can double click processed image. And here we go. I can go ahead and share this. I can go ahead and print it. I can do whatever I want. So that was a quick look at Topaz black and white effects and how you can take your workflow or take an image out of Lightroom, do some retouching on it in Lightroom, bounce into Photoshop, into the plugin, make your edits in there, and then round trip back out of Photoshop into Lightroom. And that's where we are now. So check it out. Really cool software, really powerful. I'm enjoying it a lot and just experimenting around with all the cool things that I can do with it.